There's always somebody going to turn up and say, I can make £15,000 a week and this is how I did it. Click below, tell you how it's done. And what that tells us subliminally is, I am not enough. I'm not enough. Let's reconnect. Listen to your life. That was a quote I read recently by Frederick Beuchner. This is the guy. Listen to your life. It stood out to me. Are you listening to your life? I felt that summed up exactly what we've been talking about when we thought about wisdom, Sophia, wisdom being in the matter, in the world, and looking for meaning and purpose. And we've used Jung and thought about how Carl Jung was influenced by Gnosticism when he tried to make sense of consciousness, and he borrowed some of the ideas and stories from the Pistis Sophia, from Gnosticism. Pistis Sophia is a Coptic Christian text, and here it is. It tells the story of Sophia being trapped in the lower realms of matter, Sophia being God, being wisdom, and trying to find her way back to the pleroma, the treasury of light in the highest heavens. And it's an analogy, really. It just helps to understand the model of psycho-spiritual reality, if you like. And I've enjoyed looking at that. We've been looking at it before. If you haven't seen any of the previous videos and you've just stumbled over this one, you might want to watch the one that goes just before this, and I'm going to link it for you here so that you can go back and watch that. We spoke about how matter and consciousness correlate. We mentioned that happens in synchronicities, where the inner reality and the outer reality, so-called out there, match up and make us think, what's happening here? There is meaning, and this meaning seems to be like interwoven in this tapestry of life. And so it's not random. Your life is not random. And we said that this time, in this video, we're going to think about how that actually happens. How do consciousness and matter, meaning the stuff of life, meaning your life, the content of your life, and also your body, you as a person, as a human being, there's meaning that's sort of coded in to you that is trying to lead you and direct you. And so this question, are you listening to your life, is so on point. It's so pertinent to the study that we're sharing. Most of us have a kind of ambiguous relationship with our own lives. I might want to get away from it, so I choose distractions. And those distractions can become addictions. Anything that will take me away from listening to my life. I might want to change things about my life. I might have a tendency to compare to other people and think, if I were more like them, I'd be happy. If I had a better job, better relationship, better health. If things were different, then I will be happy, And there's always somebody going to turn up and say, I can make £15,000 a week and this is how I did it. Click below, I'll tell you how it's done. And what that tells us subliminally, that subliminal message is, I am not enough. I'm not enough. And Sophia, wisdom in Greek, the word means wisdom. Wisdom of God, wisdom of faith. So Pistis Sophia means wisdom of faith. So it's God's wisdom that comes to us in life. Comes in two ways. It comes through desire and it comes through the unconscious. And those are the things we need to be listening to if we're listening really listening, leaning in to life, to my life, your life. Everyone's life does have a plan and purpose. And I know that some of you will be thinking that there's a resistance to hearing that, because when you hear about what your life's purpose is, you'll think that's a pressure in itself to achieve something and for it to count in some way. And you might be thinking, you probably will be thinking that I can't live up to that, because we're back to the comparison thing. And you look at other people and think that they've achieved something really, really big. But I'm not really doing very much. Not really doing very much with my life. The point is, everything that's in your life, all the content of your life, is meaningful. And I'm not going to get into the discussion about what about suffering, what about when bad things happen, because that's a cul-de-sac, trying to explain that in terms of God's purpose, the reasoning, the meaning of it. People try to do it, people get drawn in. It's called theodicy, the meaning and the reasoning behind suffering. And when you try to explain it, you just make it worse. So I'm not doing that, I don't mean that. Think of it as a child. Think of your relationship with your inner child. People talk about this sometimes. I first heard of this from Ho'oponopono, and I wrote about it in this book, my Forgiveness Journal, which is a practical introduction to the practice of Ho'oponopono and the inner child. There is a section about it that introduces the inner child as the unconscious or the subconscious, same thing. And that the subconscious wants a relationship with you, with the conscious mind. It's like constantly tugging at your sleeve, just as a child would, to get your attention. And so when we think about, are we listening? Am I listening to my life? This raises the question, what is my attitude towards that inner child? Am I treating it with compassion or ignoring it? And we all know that if we ignore a child that just wants to be heard, that doesn't bode well for the future, for what shows up, for what will happen. So we start to see how this can relate to our life. And certainly in the Ho'oponopono practice, the idea is that patterns just repeat. Problems are patterns repeating until we clean them, clean the data. Something new and creative can emerge. And it's really saying the same thing as Pistis Sophia. In fact, that revelation has come to me now as I'm filming, that it is just really the same thing. Because in Pistis Sophia, wisdom emerges from the stuff of life, often the problems, often out of despair, often out of the chaos, which is in the story of Pistis Sophia. She's trapped in the chaos. And it's only through integrating the divine feminine is what Sophia represents. Not through wanting to be delivered from it. That's the divine masculine that just wants to escape, press on, ignore problems, not to really sit down and listen and look at them. But in listening, you integrate. And then you redeem. There's an alchemy, a holy alchemy that takes place that clears the negative patterns, the chaos, and the meaning can emerge. And the meaning emerges through things like synchronicities. So in the last video I talked about an example of a lady who went to therapy, counselling, and she had been an artist. She stopped going to university because things were pressing. She just had to think about her duty, her responsibilities, making money, and so she never finished her degree. The desire was always there, but she wouldn't listen. And because she wouldn't listen, she wasn't fulfilling her life's purpose. And the therapist, Gary Sparks, I think his name was, wasn't it, was finding that when he was talking to her, his foot was starting to get uncomfortable. It was swelling. And this kept happening every time she went to a session. And he said, what is the meaning in this? It came to his mind that this was actually because she was not taking her stand, listening to her inner child, listening to her true higher guidance from within, the deeper meaning of what she should be doing, ignoring it. And so it shows up as some kind of manifestation in some way. That can be an illness. In this case, it was a physical manifestation of the swelling, that trying to get the symbol through, the symbol of standing, making your mark, having your footprint, finding who you are. And she listened, and she went and completed her degree, went back to university, and then she was a successful artist, winning awards. And she just wouldn't have done that if she had not been helped to listen. And so this voice of the unconscious comes through dreams sometimes, and it comes through desires. It's something that you want to do, that you really want to do, but you're pushing it down. This reminds me so much of the difference between duty. Duty is religion. Religion gives us precepts and rules that are good for society as a whole. Civilization, we need the morality and the legal system that comes out of religion. It's good. But religion is not going to help the individual. Helps groups and communities, but it will always require duty first. And so this lady put a duty first. But the individuation process is finding out what you want, what you really want. We've been told that not to think that way, that it's selfish, haven't we? You know, Christianity, religion tells you put yourself last, put other people first, put duty first. But the Sophia, the wisdom of God, the feminine divine, will keep trying to get your attention and speak softly and wants to be heard. And when you listen, when you lean in and listen, oh, there's such a blissful release. There's a delight from making a decision to follow the desire of what you really want to do, and finding your way in life. And the world will come to meet you. You know, there will be ease because it's all connected. There is this, we can't get our head around it, but there is a network. And it's an intelligence, it's the energy, light and information, an information network that brings things together. All things work together for good for those that love God and are called according to his purpose. That's come into my mind just now. In fact, I looked at that just yesterday. I think it's Romans 12 verse 8 or 8:12. I can't remember which. I think it is. But the point is, I always thought that meant be a good Christian, as long as you are in that camp, doing God's will. And some of you will know what I mean if you've come from that background. But this way of understanding it is all things work together for those who love God. Love, Sophia, means to love that inner child, to show compassion to it and to listen, to lean in and listen. And then there are powers greater than you that will help things to fall into place. That's the being obedient. It's the listening. Problems happen when we don't listen, because the unconscious wants to be heard and wants to be in a relationship with you, with the conscious mind. And if it's ignored, it'll keep tugging, and then it'll start knocking, and then then it becomes more insistent and shows up as problems. In the Pistis Sophia story, Sophia, the main character, is trapped in the material world. You have these different realms of consciousness, and each realm or level of consciousness is ruled over by the archons, the demiurges. And they want to steal her light. But she wants to return home and get to the pleroma, to the treasury of light, and she's weeping because she's lost her way. And how does she find her way? By meeting Christ. At the 13th aeon, there are 13 of these layers of consciousness before you reach the treasury of light. And at the gate of the treasury of light, she meets Christ. And we have these 13 repentances. These are the ways in which to enter, to ascend, that she's given. She works her way through 13 repentances. And what does repentance mean? We've talked about this before. Metanoia is the word in Greek. Metanoia. And it means bigger, larger is the meta, and noia, mind. Enter into the larger mind. Expand your consciousness. And that's what Christ does. He helps her. She calls him her saviour. He's helping her. Why? Because the Christ is the Logos. And the Logos is the inner teacher. The church won't give you Logos. It'll give you morality. It'll give you community. But you have to find your own way, and that's why Christ said, "Follow me," and why it's an inner relationship of knowing through listening, through leaning in and listening. So I mentioned Logos then, and I've also mentioned Sophia. What is the difference? We're going to think about that next time, because there's more to say about this Logos. In simplified terms, we could say Logos is the divine masculine and Sophia is the divine feminine. We think of Logos as the salvation or redeeming from above, and by that we mean, I'll explain in the next video that I'm going to make, and I will link it at the end when I've made it. So depending on when you're watching this, the Logos is like the inspiration, the divine guidance from above, higher consciousness. Whereas Sophia is the unconscious, the stuff that's pushed down. All of it has to be redeemed. All of it has to be transmuted. The light transforms the darkness. So we find Sophia in the middle of the darkness, in the middle of the dark stuff, in the middle of the chaos. So for now, I invite you just now to think about your life. Think about your relationship to your life. Be really honest with yourself. Maybe you're going through a real struggle. Maybe there are challenges that are just overwhelming and you're struggling, suffering. Or maybe you're nothing, maybe nothing much is happening. And that's its own kind of challenge, because you think you might be bored. You might think that it's just mundane, my life. I've thought about this a lot, sometimes even within the space of a day. If I'm doing something like writing my book or preparing to make a video, I really value that. I think that's important. I feel good about that. And then I have to stop doing that, and I have to do something like, prepare the evening meal or empty the compost bin, and I'm trying to lift it out of its little caddy, and it's a, biodegradable bag, and it splits and it's all going everywhere, and I have to fish it all out, and it's horrible, all rotting vegetables. And this is something that I just want to be done with quickly. And so what I'm doing is making judgments, value judgments on my life. This is good and that isn't bad, or not so good. All of that is, it changes when we see that God is in the stuff of life, all of it. Finding meaning, finding grace. I had a day like that yesterday. Something had been on my mind that was troubling me and I'd been upset about. And I nearly went into, I could feel myself, you might relate to this, where you sort of think I'm going to sink into, not depression, but just into a dark place where you're replaying stuff. And then you're absent. Anxiety is really can take over, take you to a dark place. And I thought, that's what I'm heading. I see the signs for it. And then just out of nowhere, grace came and reminded me, it's a story. And that's the being lifted out of it by having the higher consciousness and understanding that it's just the story of me, all of this temporary story, and there is something bigger. I'm a soul having an earthly experience, but when I'm totally got my head in the earthly experience, I forget that I'm a soul and that it's all temporary, and I get the peace back and a different perspective when I remember that. But it meant that when I went through my day, it was a sort of cleaning, tidying day, doing all the chores in the house. We'd been away and we got back and I was just doing a thorough clean from top to bottom, and but there was a sort of joy in it. I felt this peace in doing the mundane stuff. And I was and I know that was teaching me something new about what this is all about. Not running away from the problems, not trying to distract from them, but kind of allowing and knowing there's meaning, and I don't have to understand why, don't have to understand it, but allowing the compassion to transmute it. let there be a softening. Well, you know what I'd normally do is I'd normally get cross with the people that I felt were persecuting me. I'd normally just resist. And I'd tell myself, I feel, and your body, when you do that, your body tenses up. There's a resistance because you become defensive, fight or flight, But with the softening and the leaning into it and asking, what is the meaning in this? Show me the meaning in it. And I invite you to do that. Do that now. Whatever is happening for you in your life, listen in, lean in. The little inner child is tugging at your sleeve. Take their hand. Say, I've got time for you. I'm listening. It's going to be okay. Resist the temptation to ignore, to find distraction, to choose something else. And know that everything that is happening now in your life is exactly as it should be. There are no mistakes. I'm sure, like me, you will have regrets. You can torment yourself, can't you, thinking, I wish I could go back in time and change that and do it differently. How does it feel if you say nothing is a mistake? Put your hand on your heart and just say, I'm exactly where I should be. It's okay. All of it's okay. Whether you're in the middle of a struggle, a trial, or whether you're just a little bit lost, a bit bored. Because once you establish that inner relationship and you start listening to the unconscious, listening and giving permission for the child to tell you what it wants to do, things will begin to change. And you'll just feel different. This is the individuation process. It's how you find yourself. And remember, the self is much more than you think, much more than the small you. So next time, Logos. I'll talk a little bit more about that, about what it is, how it relates to our own journey. Not talking theology, not making it academic. You'll be surprised at what I'm going to say about it. And the means by which it's come to me, the understanding has come to me, is part of what Logos is all about, that I'm going to be teaching about. So I don't want to give a spoiler. Join me next time. Thank you for listening. Take care and see you soon. Bye for now.